Hi, and welcome to another video of the listening practice series on my channel in English with Lisa. The short stories in these videos are all created and narrated by me. It's my voice you hear, not that of an AI, artificial intelligence program. This listening series is entirely in English, and it's separated in playlists of different levels, from A1 all the way up to C1 and C2. So, let's get started. Grab a notebook for any new vocabulary, get comfortable, and enjoy today's story. Welcome to today's short story. The Accidental Cult Leader. Chapter 1. Just a Book Club. Paul Miller loved books. He had always been a passionate reader, but since moving to the small town of Riverdale 6 months ago, he hadn't found anyone to discuss literature with. His apartment was filled with books, stacked on shelves, piled on tables, and even lined up neatly under his bed. But reading alone wasn't enough anymore. One rainy Tuesday evening, as Paul was enjoying a cup of tea and his favorite mystery novel at the local cafe, he made a decision. He would start a book club. Nothing fancy, just a small group of people who shared his love for stories. The next day, Paul designed a simple poster on his computer. Riverdale Book Club. Join us for meaningful discussions about life-changing books. Meeting every Thursday at 7 p.m. Enlightenment Cafe, back room. Contact Paul Miller, 555-0123. He printed 20 copies and placed them around town, at the cafe, the library, the community center, and the local grocery store. Then he waited, hoping at least 3 or 4 people would show interest. To his surprise, when Thursday evening arrived, 11 people had gathered in the back room of the Enlightenment Cafe. Paul had chosen this venue because of its comfortable armchairs and quiet atmosphere. He had no idea that its name would soon contribute to a major misunderstanding. "Welcome, everyone," Paul smiled nervously at the group. "I'm so pleased that you've all decided to join our, little community." A woman with bright red glasses raised her hand. "Will we be following a specific text or scripture?" Paul blinked in confusion. "Well, I thought we could start with The Secret Garden. It's a classic that explores themes of healing and personal growth." The group nodded enthusiastically, many of them writing this down in notebooks they had brought. "And will there be any special rituals we need to prepare for?" asked a middle-aged man wearing an unusual crystal pendant. "Rituals?" Paul laughed nervously. "Well, I suppose you could call our discussions a ritual of sorts. I usually make tea before reading. Does anyone else have any reading habits they'd like to share?" For the next hour, Paul talked about his favorite books and asked the group about their preferences. The members listened with intense focus, interpreting his casual comments as profound wisdom. When he mentioned that he liked to read by candlelight during power outages, 3 people wrote this down. When he joked about how books had saved his life during difficult times, several members nodded knowingly at each other. At the end of the meeting, a shy young woman named Emily approached him. "Thank you, Guide Paul. This was really illuminating." "Oh, just Paul is fine," he said with a smile. "And you're welcome. Will you be joining us next week?" "Absolutely." Emily's eyes widened. "I wouldn't miss it. I've been searching for meaning for so long." As the group left, Paul heard them whispering excitedly. He felt pleased. The book club was off to a great start. Little did he know that his casual comments about finding meaning between the pages and living multiple lives through books had been interpreted in ways he never intended. Chapter 1 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. Why did Paul Miller decide to start a book club? A. To gain followers for his spiritual movement. B. Because he had no one to discuss literature with. C. To meet potential romantic partners. The correct answer is B. Because he had no one to discuss literature with. Number 2. What caused the initial misunderstanding about the nature of the book club? A. Paul's intentionally cryptic language. B. The name Enlightenment Cafe and Paul's casual comments about books. C. Paul's explicit invitation to join a spiritual movement. The correct answer is B. The name Enlightenment Cafe and Paul's casual comments about books. Number 3. What book did Paul suggest for the group's first reading? A. The Secret Garden. B. A religious scripture or spiritual text. C. Pride and Prejudice. The correct answer is A. The Secret Garden. Chapter 2. The Misunderstanding Grows. By the third week, the book club had grown to 25 members. Paul was both pleased and slightly overwhelmed by the enthusiasm. Something strange was happening, though. Despite his attempts to discuss the secret garden, the conversations kept drifting toward unusual interpretations. "When Mary discovers the hidden garden," said a new member named Kevin, "it clearly represents finding the truth that has been concealed from society." "Exactly," exclaimed another member, "and the key symbolizes the special knowledge that only the enlightened ones like us possess." Paul tried to redirect the conversation. "Well, it's certainly about discovery, but I think—" "Guide Paul is teaching us to read between the lines," interrupted Sarah, the woman with the red glasses from the first meeting. "The garden is a metaphor for our group, a special place hidden from ordinary people." "I really think the author just wanted to tell a story about—" Paul began, but his voice was drowned out by enthusiastic agreement from the others. After the meeting, Paul noticed that some members had begun wearing matching green scarves, apparently to symbolize the garden. Others had started greeting each other with a strange hand gesture that involved tracing the shape of a key in the air. Even more concerning, they had started bringing gifts for him: homemade bread, handcrafted jewelry, and in one case, a painting of Paul surrounded by a golden light. The painting was titled "The Awakening" and featured Paul holding a book that emitted rays of light. When Paul arrived at the cafe for the fourth meeting, he found the group had rearranged the furniture. The chairs were now positioned in a circle, with one special chair decorated with cushions and what appeared to be flowers, clearly intended for him. "Welcome, Guide Paul," the group said in unison as he entered. "Please, just call me Paul," he insisted. feeling increasingly uncomfortable. And why is my chair decorated? It's to honor your wisdom, explained Kevin. We've all experienced such profound changes since joining your circle. It's just a book club, Paul clarified, his voice rising slightly in panic. We're just discussing literature. The members exchanged knowing smiles. Of course, said Emily, winking. Just a book club. The situation became even more complicated when a man named Theodore joined their fifth meeting. Theodore had a commanding presence with piercing eyes and a confident smile. He listened intently as the group discussed their interpretations of the secret garden, occasionally nodding as if confirming some secret knowledge. After the meeting, Theodore approached Paul. "Impressive work," he said, extending his hand. "I've been leading my own spiritual group for years, but I must say your approach is refreshingly subtle." "No, you don't understand," Paul insisted. "This is literally just a book club. We read books and talk about them." Theodore laughed. Of course, of course. The book metaphor. Very clever. The authorities can't shut down a book club, can they? I should have thought of that. Before Paul could protest further, Theodore handed him a business card that read, "Theodore Dawn, Spiritual Enlightenment Consultant," and walked away, leaving Paul staring after him in confusion and growing alarm. Chapter 2 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. How did members of the book club begin to show their devotion to the movement? A. By donating money to Paul. B. By wearing green scarves and using a key-shaped hand gesture. C. By recruiting their friends and families. The correct answer is B. By wearing green scarves and using a key-shaped hand gesture. Number 2. Who was Theodore and what did he assume about Paul's book club? A. A librarian who wanted to support the reading group. B. A spiritual leader who believed Paul was running a disguised cult. C. A literature professor who wanted to guide their book discussions. The correct answer is B. A spiritual leader who believed Paul was running a disguised cult. Number 3. How did Paul attempt to correct the misunderstanding during discussions? A. He didn't try to correct them and enjoyed his new role as a leader. B. He tried redirecting conversations back to the actual content of the book. C. He welcomed the spiritual interpretations but rejected being called guide. The correct answer is B. He tried redirecting conversations back to the actual content of the book. Chapter 3. The Real Cult Leader. By the 6th week, Paul was desperate to regain control of his book club. The group had grown to nearly 40 members, many of whom had never read The Secret Garden, but came for what they called the teachings. Some had started referring to themselves as gardeners of truth and had created a complicated system of ranks based on how many meetings they had attended. Paul decided it was time for a direct approach. He arrived early to the meeting and wrote, "This is just a book club," in large letters on the whiteboard at the front of the room. When everyone had arrived, he stood up, and cleared his throat. I need to make something very clear, he announced. This is not a cult. This is not a spiritual group. This is just a book club. I am not a guide or a leader or a guru. I'm just a guy who likes books. The room was silent for a moment. Then Theodore, who had become a regular attendee, stood up. Friends, he said smoothly, Guide Paul is testing our commitment. Remember what he taught us about the garden. The truth is often hidden. His denial is simply part of the journey. Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. No, Paul exclaimed. That's not what I meant at all. But Theodore had already captured the group's attention. In fact, I believe it's time we took our understanding to the next level. I have prepared a special ceremony for next week's gathering. We will meet at my property outside town for an overnight retreat. Paul watched in horror as Theodore distributed flyers for something called the Midnight Enlightenment Ceremony, which would apparently involve special robes, a bonfire, and a financial commitment to demonstrate devotion. This is ridiculous, Paul protested. I'm not participating in any ceremony, and I strongly advise all of you to stay away too. This sounds like an actual cult. Theodore's expression hardened momentarily before he forced a laugh. Humor, another test from Guide Paul. He knows that those truly committed to the path will recognize the next step. After the meeting, several members approached Paul to reassure him that they would pass his test by attending Theodore's ceremony. Despite his increasingly frantic explanations, they seemed convinced that his denials were some sort of spiritual teaching method. Emily, who had become one of the most dedicated members, was the last to leave. Guide Paul, she said hesitantly, I've been meaning to ask you something important. Please, just call me Paul, he sighed, expecting another question about hidden meetings or secret teachings. Actually, Emily continued, I've been wondering if you'd like to have coffee sometime. Not as a guide and follower, just as two people who enjoy books. Paul stared at her in surprise. You don't think I'm a spiritual leader? Emily laughed. Of course not. I'm studying psychology, and this whole situation has been fascinating to observe. Group dynamics, suggestion, the human need for belonging, it's all textbook stuff. I've been taking notes for my thesis. So you knew all along that this was just a misunderstanding? Paul asked. Yes, but then Theodore showed up, and I realized he was actually dangerous. He's been involved in some questionable groups before. That's why I stayed, to keep an eye on things. Paul felt relief wash over him. So what do we do about his ceremony? Emily smiled. Well, I've already reported him to the authorities for his previous scams. They're going to be waiting at his property tomorrow night. As for the book club members, I think it's time for some honest conversation. Just regular people talking about books. The next Thursday, Paul and Emily arrived early to the cafe. They removed the special chair, took down the strange symbols some members had hung on the walls, and set up a simple display of books, real books with no hidden meanings. When the members arrived, Paul and Emily explained everything clearly. There was confusion, embarrassment, and finally laughter. So, no spiritual enlightenment? Asked Kevin, looking slightly disappointed. Just the kind you get from reading a good book, Paul answered. But isn't that enough? Stories help us understand ourselves and others. They take us to different worlds and show us different perspectives. That's pretty magical on its own, isn't it? Slowly, the group nodded in agreement. Now, said Paul, holding up a new book, who's ready to actually discuss Pride and Prejudice? No hidden meanings, no secret symbols, just a brilliant story about pride, prejudice, and people learning to understand each other better. As the genuine discussion began, Paul caught Emily's eye and smiled. His book club had finally become exactly what he had intended, just a group of people who loved to read, sharing their thoughts over cups of tea in a cozy cafe. And if a few members still secretly believed Paul was testing them with this back to basics approach, well, he would deal with that misunderstanding another day. Chapter 3 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. What drastic measure did Paul take to clarify the nature of the book club? A. He wrote, "This is just a book club" on the whiteboard. B. He cancelled all future meetings. C. He brought in a real spiritual teacher. The correct answer is A. He wrote, "This is just a book club" on the whiteboard. Number 2. What did Theodore plan to do with the group? A. Help Paul organize better book discussions. B. Organize an overnight retreat with robes, a bonfire, and financial commitments. C. Report the group to authorities for illegal activities. The correct answer is B. Organize an overnight retreat with robes, a bonfire, and financial commitments. Number 3. Who was Emily actually, and what was her role in the story? A. A devoted cult follower who genuinely believed in Paul's teachings. B. A psychology student studying group dynamics who recognized Theodore's danger. C. An undercover police officer investigating Theodore. The correct answer is B. A psychology student studying group dynamics who recognized Theodore's danger. Epilogue. Paul's simple book club finally found its true purpose after the misunderstandings were cleared. While some members were initially disappointed by the lack of spiritual enlightenment, most embraced the genuine joy of literary discussion. Paul and Emily's relationship blossomed beyond their shared love of books, united by their amusing experience as accidental cult figures. Theodore faced legal consequences for his previous schemes, and the Gardeners of Truth transformed into what they were always meant to be, just friends discussing good books over tea, finding meaning in stories rather than misinterpreted symbols and imagined prophecies. The end. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notifications bell. This isn't an artificial intelligence. The story was narrated by In English with Lisa. I'm a native speaking teacher, and this is my real voice. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I love hearing from all of you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications bell so you never miss a new lesson. Plus, you'll help my channel grow, and you'll give me the possibility to create other videos that you can watch for free. See you soon. Bye.